Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Before the Vote. My name is Bella Gentry, I'm your host. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different than our normal episodes. I don't have any guests on today, it's just me talking, and we are going to be doing a deep dive of a specific way that teens can get involved in government. And that way is through civil protest / taking a stand. So what I mean by civil protest is just really any way that a person can go about promoting a certain cause that they're passionate about. So it kind of goes beyond what comes to mind when I say the word civil protest. So that's why I'm kind of broadening it to taking a stand as well. But before we get into all that, I wanted to give a quick disclaimer and also make an announcement. So first, for the disclaimer, I just wanted to make it clear that I am by no means an expert on civil protest. I've only ever participated in a small walkout before, so I definitely don't have a ton of experience in this field, but I do know a bit about it and have done some research on it as well, so I do feel qualified to be talking about this type of thing. But I did just want to throw that out there so it doesn't seem like I'm trying to make myself out to be some expert on civil protest. And this episode does include some info that I have gotten from online sources as I've been researching, so I'll definitely be sharing what my sources were as I share that information that I found online. And now for the announcement. As always, there is going to be a Google form linked in the description box below. It is an anonymous Google form that will take you maximum 2 minutes to fill out, and on it you can just let me know what you think about Before the Vote and if it's accomplishing what I hope that it is. So I would be super grateful if you could just take a couple of minutes of your time immediately after you finish this video to go fill that out. So now let's get into the topic today. So the first thing that I want to talk about is just to go over some forms of protesting / forms of taking a stand. So the first means of protest is the most obvious one, the thing that probably comes to your mind immediately when you hear the word protest, and that is a march or a rally, or any other type of protest that involves you using your body to take a stand and being present in a certain place with a group of people advocating for or against something, using signs or marching, just using your body to take a stand. So that's the most obvious form of protest, but there are a lot of other ways that are up and coming and have only become more prevalent in recent years, so I wanted to go over those as well. And so the second form of protest that I wanted to highlight are petitions. So with a petition, you can sign your name to a letter that might be sent to a company or a legislator or a lawmaker or someone like that, and that petition might be advocating for a certain policy or against a certain policy. But one thing I do want to say is if you're going to sign a petition, make sure you read the stipulations, and that you read the letter in its entirety to make sure that you're in full agreement with everything that you're signing your name to, because you don't want to be advocating for something that you don't actually support. Because something can look really great on face value, but kind of have a few things that you might not totally agree with underneath the surface. So just make sure you check those out before you sign your name to something. But petitions are a great, easy, convenient way for you to support a cause you care about. The third form of taking a stand through protest is by abstaining from certain things, such as through veganism or by being a vegetarian. So in using those examples, a vegetarian will choose to not eat meat to maybe advocate against factory farming. So they're choosing to not support those companies that use factory farming as a form of protest, and so through their actions, they're taking a stand. The fourth form that I wanted to highlight is probably the most common, widespread form. It is only become more prevalent in recent years and is super effective, and that is social media. Most everyone has a social media account, and they can make their own posts advocating or educating people on a cause, or they can share posts that others have made. People can even create their own awareness accounts to support a certain cause. So, for instance, my Before the Vote YouTube channel, what you're listening to right now, and also the Instagram account that's linked with it, is a form of using social media to advocate for something, to advocate for teens getting involved in government. So social media is awesome because it can connect with a bunch of people and is accessible by people all over the world, not just the people in your area. However, one thing that I do want to say is make sure that what you're sharing and consuming online is true, because as social media has grown in its prevalence, a problem that has grown with it is that there's a ton of misinformation online, and a lot of sources that present what seems to be factual information are actually really biased. So you do want to make sure you do your research and fact check things before you share them or before you consume them even, to just make sure they're true. But that being said, social media is a great tool and one that I hope to use more on my personal account as well in the future to advocate for my beliefs and to be more vocal about what I believe. Another way to take a stand is probably not something that comes to mind easily when you think about protesting or advocating, but it's just simply having a conversation with someone about a cause you care about. So, even just a classmate or a family member or a friend, just talking to them about something that you're passionate about and educating them on the issue, sharing why you believe in it, can be really effective in just getting someone to join your side or just making them aware of a certain issue. This is a really easy, awesome tool to use to take a stand, but in today's world, it often gets misconstrued. So later on in this episode, we are going to be talking about some ways to just have civil conversation with one another about potentially divisive topics, because that is a skill that I think we're lacking in this country, but one that could be super helpful for us in the future. The next few forms of protest are not ones that immediately came to mind when I was just brainstorming for this episode. Instead, they came from the Anti-Defamation League, an article they posted called 10 Ways Youth Can Engage in Activism. So I did want to share some of those ways because I thought they were a little bit more outside of the box, or just ones that are tangible for youth but maybe don't get thought about that often. So the first one is to just give a lecture in maybe like a classroom, or create art to support a certain cause, or to host an information fair about a certain cause, and that can be done in school or in your community. Just something small to educate people, really. That's kind of its goal, is just educate people on an issue. And another means of protest that the ADL came up with is to just talk to legislators or companies. You can kind of do that through petitions, but you can also just contact a legislator. We've talked about that a lot on this series. Or you can contact a company or an organization that maybe has a policy or a practice that you don't agree with. Just directly going to the people that can change that is also a way that you can take a stand. Another thing you can do is you can get involved in a larger interest group in your community. You can even start one of your own. And these interest groups are groups that are really just formed around a certain cause and are aimed at making change or advocating for that cause. So if there's something that you're really passionate about, I would encourage you to maybe do some research and see what organizations are championing that cause and see how you can get plugged into that. Another opportunity to take a stand is to hold a fundraiser for a certain cause. If your issue that you care about is one that maybe needs more funding, you can have a fundraiser, a small fundraiser in your community, and that can also be a form of taking a stand. And lastly, you can just raise press for your issue. So one way you can do that is, of course, by posting on social media, but you can also write an article on your issue, or you can contact your local news station about doing a segment on that issue. Just getting the word out can be really effective in taking a stand as well. So now we're going to talk about some ways that you can do like your standard type of protest, like a march or a rally or something like that. So first thing I would do is I would pick a cause that you care about and that you really want to protest. And then I would do a little bit of research to try and find one in your area that is taking place. So that can be through an organization already established in your area, or maybe just a different citizen is starting up one, and see if you can find one that you can participate in. But before you actually participate, make sure you really do your research on the organization that's hosting the protest or the individual that's hosting the protest, and just make sure that they have gotten all the permits they need and everything like that and are abiding by city guidelines, and also that their actual mission statement and the reason why they're protesting is something that you fully agree with. Because, like I was saying with the petitions thing, you don't want to put your name and put your efforts into something that you don't fully agree with, because that'll leave a really bad taste in your mouth later when you find out that you didn't totally agree with what you were actually standing for, even though you thought you did in the moment. So all that to say, just make sure you do your research. But if there's not a organization or a person already conducting a protest in your area, you can also start your own. And so if you're wanting to go down that route, I would recommend doing some research online, because there are lots of different guides out there for how to get that started. As you do so, make sure that you obtain the proper permission for your area, permits, licenses, whatever needs to be gained in order to make that happen. So just make sure you abide by those guidelines. So now that we've covered the ways that you can take a stand and kind of how to dive into that, let's talk a little bit about some of the benefits of protesting and just using your voice to advocate for a cause you care about. So the first benefit is that taking a stand and using your voice, or using your efforts to kind of advocate for something that you care about, gives you confidence in your political views, and it forces you really to just say, this is what I believe in, I believe this is right, and this is why. And that can help you just become a more empowered citizen and really just give you confidence in who you are and what you believe. And that's a really cool thing to take on, and it really helps you feel confident that you're helping your cause and that you're doing something about it, and that's a really good feeling to have. Secondly, protesting helps you meet people who share your passions. So if you go to a protest or if you're engaging in an online community that's centered around your issue, you're going to meet people that have your similar beliefs and that also share in your passions. And that's a really cool thing. And you're able to make relationships based off of that and learn from them and their experiences and the research they've done so that you become a more informed citizen and a more informed activist as well. On the other side of the coin, when you're engaging in these things, you're also going to meet people who oppose your beliefs and who are maybe on the opposite side of your issue. And that may seem scary and negative at face value, but at the end of the day, it's also a really cool opportunity for you to have a conversation with those people and to get to practice having a civil conversation about your issue. And it will allow you to apply all of your research and knowledge and everything that you've gained from your experiences in advocating for that issue to try and educate the other person and share with them why you believe what you do. So it's really a positive experience to be able to have conversations with people who support your issue and also with those that oppose it. Third, protesting is a show of democracy. One of our First Amendment rights is the right to assemble or the right to protest. And so that is something that we should exercise. Our country was built on the foundation that citizens would raise issues to be turned into laws or movements by the government. Everything should originate with the people. And so protesting is a way to raise your voice to make that happen and to put democracy in action. Democracy is all about the people's voice being heard. And so by protesting and taking a stand, you're making your voice heard and you're putting democracy in action, which is a really positive thing and will make our country a better place. I know that's kind of a big, kind of over the top way to look at it, but it's true. Our country was founded on the idea that citizens themselves would incite movements to help direct the government in what direction they should go. And so that's all of our responsibilities, no matter what format you do it by. And then, of course, protesting can even achieve big ends like getting a law passed or something like that. The protest could be super successful and achieve all the goals that you want it to achieve, and sometimes it might not. But even if it doesn't achieve everything that you wanted it to, like getting a law passed or something like that, it's still going to be effective to some degree because it's educating people and it's bringing that issue to people's attention, which is a really great thing at the end of the day. And it's just kind of going to get that ball rolling so that bigger goals can be achieved later down the line. And then lastly, research from the United States Institute of Peace has shown that movements that get youth involved tend to be more effective at accomplishing their goals than those that don't involve youth. And so that's a really cool statistic that really just shows that youth have a part to play and youth really should be at the front lines of these movements so that they can affect the change that they want to. Furthermore, the USIP research shows that youth getting involved through activism helps improve a country's quality of democracy through the years. So by youth getting involved in these movements now, it'll increase our country's level of democracy and so that we will have a more democratic future ahead of us, which is a really great thing. So protesting now is an investment in our country's future, which is awesome. So now I want to move into a brief conversation on how to keep protests and conversations civil. So like I mentioned, when you're engaging in these activist activities, you're going to come into contact with people who don't share your beliefs and are in fact on the other side of your beliefs. And it can be really hard to have civil conversations with these people because I know in my experiences, I've definitely been one to villainize the other side and to get really defensive and snappy in defending my side and just seeing them as having the wrong ideas and me as having the right ideas. And that's not always the case. And I think that tends to be what society goes toward in today's political climate because everything is so polarized and Republicans see Democrats as the villains and Democrats see Republicans as the villains. And we tend to see people for their political beliefs, but we have to remember that people are people first with a certain set of political beliefs. People are not their beliefs. They are a person first, and then they have a certain set of beliefs that they do, and their experiences and their morals form those beliefs. And so we have to learn to respect other people's beliefs. So when we come into contact with someone who doesn't share our beliefs, there's kind of a few things that we can do to try and have a civil conversation with them and get the most out of it that we can. So first, you should try and recognize that there's a reason behind why someone else thinks what they do and has the ideas that they do. And you should try to understand their perspective and try to avoid villainizing them for having a different perspective from your own. It's more of a learning opportunity as opposed to an opportunity to argue. So take the time to listen to and learn from their side, try and understand where they're coming from, and try to teach your side as well. And don't get defensive, but just try to use this as an opportunity to use all the research that you've done to educate the other side on why you believe what you do and about your cause and about your issue. It's a great listening, learning, and teaching opportunity. So hopefully your conversation will result in both sides being educated on different issues and different sides of the same coin. Maybe you'll be able to pull the other person to your side, or they'll pull you to their side, and you'll just influence each other in a positive way, and you'll both leave the conversation being more educated than you were when you walked into it. But if all else fails and you don't really come to a complete agreement, just agree to disagree and agree to respect each other's opinions and agree to see each other as people first before you see them for their differing opinion from yours. Because respect for others' opinions is really a beautiful thing, and if we can all as a country decide to respect each other regardless of their beliefs or their opinions, I think we'll be a lot better off and have a lot less harsh of a political climate than we do today. So that was kind of all I wanted to talk about today in regards to taking a stand and pursuing civil protest. Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you feel more encouraged and informed on the ways that you can protest and how to have civil conversations and why you should protest and take a stand. So overall, I just hope you gained something from this video. And again, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, there is a survey linked in the description box below, quick anonymous Google form survey that'll let me know what you think of this video, and I would really appreciate it if you could take 1 to 2 minutes to just fill that out. Super quick, anonymous, super easy, and I would really appreciate your response. Again, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye guys.